Serious problem, age 11. Friday donations, age 9. Inactive, age 7. These lists are supposed to have the names of real children, and those children were supposed to get fed when school cafeterias shut down during the pandemic. But that never happened. Instead, the person who made up those names took the money meant to feed them and turned it into a $250 million scam.
The FBI investigation is ongoing into what he and others have called one of the largest frauds in state history.
Just years before, that same person had been a local hero, celebrated by politicians, helping feed hungry children all over the state.
1,000 children conservatively per day not eating in Minnesota.
The Robin Hood of Minnesota, they called her. Her name was Amy Bach. But when the pandemic hit and oversight loosened, kids needed meals more than ever. Huge amounts of federal funding started pouring in, and something in Amy changed.
These are not dumb people. There are people who set out with a particular plan.
They're criminals that preyed on a system that was meant to feed children.
What followed scarred Minnesota and would reveal a statewide fraud network, forged signatures, and even jury tampering.
Another attack on the integrity of the proceedings. Now, we've already seen alleged witness tampering and even the attempted bribery of a juror.
And when the state tried to stop her, she sued them for discrimination and won. By the end, 73 people would be implicated, $250 million would be gone, and investigators would uncover expensive cars, international properties, and luxury jewelry. This is the story of feeding our future and the woman who built an empire on money meant to feed hungry children. When Amy Bach walked across the university stage in 2003 to receive her degree, she had her whole future ahead of her, a future dedicated to helping children. At least, that's what everyone thought. Life had something very different in store for Amy. In 2008, she moved to Twin Cities with her family. She took a job at a childcare center in Burnsville, starting at the bottom, working with infants. Within a year, she'd worked her way up to assistant director, navigating a world where everything ran on government payments, meal programs, tax credits, federal money flowing through a maze of forms, deadlines, and rules. Amy quickly discovered she had a talent for figuring out this complicated system. And more importantly, she was beginning to see things others missed, the gaps, the places where no one was really watching. So in 2015, she co-founded a nonprofit with her friend Christine Twait. The nonprofit was a meal program sponsor, one of the middlemen in the federal meal program. The system was straightforward. Daycares and centers serve lunch to low-income kids, submit meal counts to a sponsor who checks the numbers and sends them to the state. The state then sends federal money back down the chain. It's a pipeline designed to feed hungry kids without the government cooking the food themselves. Through that pipeline, millions of dollars flow through small nonprofits every month, money that's easy to lose track of. Amy served as the director of operations. She saw how much money was moving through the system, learned how applications were handled, how meal counts were submitted, how checks were cut. She learned everything she could, and for a while, everything was going exactly as it should. Then, in 2018, her colleagues, including Christine, fired her. Her former friends would later send a complaint to the government alleging Bach had stolen files. Templates, applications, everything needed to run a meal program sponsor. You see, some years earlier, Amy, Christine, and some others had started a different nonprofit together called Feeding Our Future. It had sat mostly unused. But when Christine tried to dissolve it in 2018, she discovered Amy had already filed new paperwork making herself the sole director. Christine's signature was on the documents, a signature she never wrote. But the forged signature was just paperwork. What Bach actually walked away with was far more valuable: knowledge. She knew how the federal meal program worked, every form, every deadline, every requirement. And now she has her own meal program, Feeding Our Future. So in 2018, the same year she was fired, Bach got Feeding Our Future up and running again. No partner to answer to, no one looking over her shoulder. She sets up an office in St. Anthony and begins recruiting meal sites. Daycares, community centers, religious organizations. Anyone feeding children could come to Amy. She'd handle the government paperwork and get them their money. One of her former clients would later describe Amy's approach in one word: easy. That's what sites loved about working with Feeding Our Future. Amy made everything easy. Applications got approved quickly. Problems got fixed. Money flowed. In its first full year, Feeding Our Future secured just over $300,000 in funding. Within a couple of years, though, that number would explode to over $200 million, and Amy knew exactly where no one was looking.
During COVID, while so many were trying to be helpers, Bach and Saeed were thieves.
March 2020. The world stops. Schools shut down overnight. Playgrounds empty, cafeterias lock their doors, and kids who rely on school meals suddenly have nowhere to go. Washington moves fast. The USDA puts out emergency rules to keep food flowing to children stuck at home, and the changes sweep everything aside. For-profit restaurants can suddenly join federal meal programs. Workers can pack up food and hand it out anywhere, no questions asked. And those in-person visits that normally catch fraud, they disappear, replaced by someone on a Zoom call miles away. Overnight, oversight vanishes. And for Amy Bach, this isn't just a crisis, it's an opening. By June 2020, Feeding Our Future is signing up new meal sites and the checks start arriving. The organization expands fast, hiring every week, reaching 65 employees by fall. And new sites keep flooding in. She's approving them faster than the Minnesota Department of Education can even process the paperwork. Safari Restaurant in South Minneapolis was one of them. Before the pandemic, it was a small restaurant making around $600,000 a year. Bach approved them as a meal site in April 2020. 3 months later, Safari Restaurant was claiming to serve meals to 5,000 children per day, 7 days a week. And it wasn't just Safari. All across the Twin Cities, sites that didn't exist in March were suddenly reporting thousands of meals daily. New locations every week, each one growing faster than the last. By November, Feeding Our Future claimed to be serving more children than Minneapolis Public Schools, the state's largest district, from sites that hadn't existed a year earlier. By the end of the year, $42 million had moved through her organization, 12 times what she'd handled the year before. The numbers were landing on desks at the Minnesota Department of Education, and they weren't landing as success stories. They were red flags. So the department starts pulling files, checking if these sites could actually feed that many kids. Safari Restaurant with 5,000 kids per day. Sites with zero track record. Numbers climbing month after month with no ceiling in sight. Then, in December 2020, the department does something they almost never do. They stop accepting new feeding sites. 2 months later, they label the organization as severely deficient, the most serious warning they have, reserved for situations where they believe federal money is at serious risk. They demand paperwork, answers. But no one expected Amy's response, and it was about to make this whole case take a wild turn.
A 6-word text from Bach to one of her staff members might have been the most stunning. She wrote, "We may have become the mob, the mob, the mob."
When the department came after Amy and Feeding Our Future, Amy didn't back down. She went on the offensive, suing the state. Her argument? The sites working with Feeding Our Future were people of color serving their communities, and the department was illegally denying those children food. When the department found her organization severely deficient again in March and froze all federal payments, Bach didn't blink. She'd positioned herself as the white lady who could open doors for immigrant entrepreneurs. When the department questioned her explosive growth and suspicious claims, she framed it as racial discrimination.
We know you're violating the law. We know they're being discriminatory.
So in April 2021, Ramsey County District Judge John Guthman warned the department that continuing to withhold payments could create legal problems. So the department resumed payments shortly after. Then in June, he held the department in contempt for failing to process applications and ordered the state to pay Feeding Our Future $47,000 in fines. Amy Bach had won. The celebration at Benadir Hall was packed. A woman performed a buranbor, a traditional Somali poem dance honoring Bach.
Sweet girl Amy, this is for you. Feed Our Future team.
State senators, city councilors, and even a representative from Ilhan Omar's office attended. That year, revenue hit $198 million. Meal sites kept appearing, dozens at a time, until nearly 300 locations across Minnesota were claiming to feed children, more than 120,000 meals per day. The numbers were staggering, but it was all about to change. You see, the FBI had been watching, and surveillance footage from one location showed something that didn't add up. The site claimed to be serving 6,000 meals daily. Agents counted 40 visitors total. At another site, then another, the same impossible gap. While Bach celebrated her court victory, federal investigators were documenting feeding sites that barely existed, and the scandal was just getting started. At Feeding Our Future, it turned out staff were generating attendance rosters from a website called listofrandomnames.com. The money trail revealed that of the $250 million Feeding Our Future received, only about 3% was actually ever spent on food. The rest was gone, and Amy's luck was about to run out.
Our top story this half hour, the cross-examination of alleged Feeding Our Future ringleader Amy Bach.
When pushed about food money transferred to her boyfriend, used to buy jewelry and vacations and rent expensive cars, she said, "I was an unwilling passenger in a Lamborghini, yes."
7 in the morning, January 20th, 2022. Amy Bach wakes to pounding on her front door in Rosemount. A battering ram crashes through. Officers rush in, shields raised, guns drawn. It's the largest law enforcement operation Minnesota has ever seen. More than 200 FBI agents and IRS investigators hitting locations across the Twin Cities. Her house, the Feeding Our Future offices, Safari Restaurant, and a dozen other sites. Inside her home, agents find the keys to a Porsche Panamera. Not extravagant by CEO standards, maybe, but Amy Bach wasn't supposed to be a CEO. She was supposed to be running a non-profit to feed hungry children. They find something else, too. Records of a $310,000 transaction. She'd sold a daycare business called The Learning Journey to a company owned by Salim Saeed, who was also the owner of Safari Restaurant. The daycare had never opened, never even served a single child. But Saeed had paid her $310,000 for it anyway, just months after Safari started claiming millions in meal payments. Agents discover the same pattern at the other houses, the other offices. Luxury cars, international properties, cash hidden in amounts that don't make sense for a charity.
Today, a witness with the FBI described how the couple spent tens of thousands of dollars on trips to Las Vegas, renting Lamborghinis and a Rolls Royce, as well as big-ticket items from places such as Louis Vuitton.
They don't arrest anyone that day. They just take the evidence and start digging. What investigators uncover is more than fraud. It's a system. A machine that ran on proximity to Amy Bach. But to reveal the full picture, they needed an insider. Hadith Yusuf Ahmed met Bach in 2019. When COVID hits and his daycare closes, Amy offers him a job at Feeding Our Future. He starts in fall 2020 and quickly becomes her right-hand man. When the feds offer him a deal, he lays it all out. At Feeding Our Future, everything comes down to who sits close to Amy. That proximity determines whether your site gets approved, how quickly your claims get processed, whether your paperwork, even when it's clearly fake, sails through without question. And he and others in her inner circle, they take money from site operators to smooth that path to make sure certain applications go to the top of the pile. He watched her sign every single payment request, every form where she swore the meals were real, the children existed, and the numbers were accurate. Amy Bach had signed it all. By the time the first trial started in April 2024, federal prosecutors had charged 73 people. Dozens had already pleaded guilty, but Amy Bach and Salim Saeed claimed they were innocent. Prosecutors decided to try 7 others first, saving Amy for later. The case seemed airtight. Then, on June 2nd, 2024, a juror came home to find a Hallmark gift bag on the doorstep wrapped nicely. Inside was $120,000 in cash and a letter telling the juror to vote not guilty for everyone, with a promise that more money would follow. But the juror turns it in immediately. Within hours, the FBI arrests a woman named Ladan Muhammad Ali, the one who delivered the cash.
It was here at Nickelodeon Universe where prosecutors say their witness was sitting on a bench when Muhammad approached, stood over her, called her a snitch, and made her promise not to testify.
Investigators traced the plot back to some of the defendants and their relatives from the trial, including a man named Abdiaziz Shafi'i Farah, the owner of a restaurant called Empire Cuisine. And so when Amy's trial finally starts on February 3rd, 2025, prosecutors waste no time pulling up a spreadsheet. The names scroll across the courtroom screens. Serious Problem, Britishy Melanie, Friday Donations. The jury has heard about the fake names before, but now prosecutors show what matters. Amy Bach's signature at the bottom of every document, her promise that she personally checked that these children existed, that she confirmed the accuracy of every name, every meal count, every claim. At least $250 million in federal funds, all certified accurate by her signature, paid out for children who never existed. And then Amy takes the stand in her own defense. She has an answer for everything. The explosive growth? She'd been fighting for underserved communities. The lawsuit against the state? She genuinely believed they were discriminating against immigrant entrepreneurs. The obviously suspicious claims? She trusted the people running the sites, believed they were really feeding children, had no idea the documents were fake. She wasn't the architect of this scheme. She was a victim. The prosecution walks her through it all. The signed checks, documents, salaries, the revenue jumping from $300,000 to $250 million in 3 years. Every piece of evidence laid out in front of her. But then, prosecutors focus on one number, Safari Restaurant, the South Minneapolis location that was bringing in $600,000 a year. 3 months after enrolling with Feeding Our Future, it was claiming to serve 5,000 children every single day. By the time the FBI shut it down, Safari had received more than $16 million. The prosecution asks her directly if she thought that was real. She maintained she'd been fooled and that she'd been taken advantage of by the people she trusted. The jury deliberates for about 5 hours. On March 19th, 2025, they deliver their answer. Guilty on all 7 counts. Salim Saeed, who sat beside her through the entire trial, falls too. The evidence against him was overwhelming. Prosecutors showed how he'd used the money to buy a $1 million mansion in Plymouth with an indoor basketball court, luxury vehicles, international property. Back in 2009, when Amy worked at a kindergarten and blogged about her future, she wrote about her plans. After becoming a center director, maybe a regional manager, she wanted to return to school for a master's degree in educational leadership, maybe eventually a doctorate. She got an education in the end, just not the one she had in mind. As of October 2025, prosecutors have secured guilty pleas or convictions for more than 50 of the 73 people connected to the Feeding Our Future scam. Abdiaziz Farah, the man behind Empire Cuisine who organized the juror bribery attempt, gets 28 years in prison. It's the second longest sentence for white-collar crime in Minnesota history. During his trial, prosecutors revealed he'd purchased 5 luxury vehicles in 6 months: a Porsche, a Tesla, a GMC Sierra, along with lakefront property and gold jewelry from Dubai. Amy Bach and the rest await sentencing, but they all face decades in federal prison. The FBI eventually managed to recover about $75 million of the stolen funds. The rest, more than $175 million, vanished, spent, hidden in accounts overseas, sitting somewhere beyond the reach of American law enforcement.